10 times the Pawn Stars scored big. When Pawn Stars premiered on History in 2009, few could have anticipated just how successful the reality series would become. Now in its 15th season, the show centers on the daily activities of the world-famous gold and silver pawn shop, a business run by the Harrison family. Customers bring in their goods to sell or pawn, often not having a clue at what their items are really worth. Although they have the option of buying it back, most just take the cash and run. It's up to the Harrison boys to cut them a deal they can't refuse, while also trying to make some money themselves. Some of the finds on the show have turned out to be complete duds, raking in next to no cash. But in other cases, the Pawn Stars hit the jackpot with rare one-off items that bring in the big bucks. With the sad passing of the family elder Richard Old Man Harrison announced last week, there's no better time than this to look over some of their biggest finds. Before we get started, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you can keep up to date with the videos about your favorite shows and movies. Let's get started.
And they'd probably go somewhere $15,000, give or take.
Number 10. Sunken Treasure. We've all heard the expression, whatever floats your boat. But what about whatever rings your bell? A woman came into the store hoping to gain a little extra cash for an upcoming move, bringing with her a 17th century ship's bell. She had no clue what it was worth, so it was up to the guys to see if it was a real treasure or just a mirage. The late Harrison family patriarch Richard Old Man Harrison was convinced the bell was a replica, as he couldn't spot any obvious signs of erosion from seawater or signs that it had ever really been used. However, when they brought it to an expert, it was confirmed as an original bell from 1602. Most shipwrecks were in shallow water, explained the professional, which is why the bell had no saltwater damage. Not many of these are still kicking around, making it a rare find too. It was valued at a whopping $15,000. Needless to say, the woman was overjoyed and quickly struck a deal with the Pawn Stars, going away to buy a flat-screen TV for her new home. Her removal guys probably got an extra tip too.
I wouldn't take anything less than 11,000.
11,000.
11,000.
Okay.
Got a deal.
Number 9. Spanish Fleet Gold Coin. They say that all the glitters isn't gold, but in this case, it definitely is. In 1715, a Spanish ship carrying millions of pesos of gold and silver was hit by a hurricane while journeying from Cuba to Spain. The ship was badly damaged in the storm and sank to the bottom of the ocean, just off the coast of Florida. While many scrambled to recover the enormous fortune, few got their hands on it. One man, Jody, was lucky enough to inherit one of the recovered coins from a relative. Although he knew what it was, he didn't really know how much it was worth, and hoped to get around $2,000 for it. Quite a meager sum. Once again, Rick Harrison was suspicious about the coin's authenticity and called in the experts to verify. To his surprise, the expert confirmed that it was an 8 escudos coin that was minted in Lima, Peru, and was worth a sweet $18,000. Rick managed to negotiate a deal with Jody, who walked away with $11,000 in his back pocket and a smile on his face. It certainly puts a spring in Rick's step too. Number 7. Edward Curtis Photographers. One of the biggest profits that the Harrisons ever turned happened 2 decades ago, before the show was ever even an idea. It not only served to teach the guys a lesson in what's valuable and what's not. One woman brought in 4 sets of photographers by the famous American photographer Edward Curtis. The early photographic process was copper plates, gelatine paper, and an etching process to create the images. Rick had no idea if they were valuable or simply a neat novelty item, but as the woman only wanted $50 for them, he decided to take the gamble and hope that they might pay off. After the deal was made, he decided to investigate the backgrounds of the sets a little more and was shocked and delighted to discover that they were worth more than a pretty penny. Rick sold them on for $20,000, making an extremely tidy profit. If he had passed them over thinking that they were too obscure, he wouldn't have made a single dime, while the woman probably would have been the one with all the spare cash. Wherever she is, she must be kicking herself.
I'm asking $20,000 for the Atlanta one, $10,000 for the Barcelona.
Number 6. Joe Greene's Olympic medals. Even champion athletes can fall in hard times. Joe Green, the Olympian bronze medalist that competed in the 1992 and 1996 games, turned up to the Harrison shop when he was in some desperate need for some cash, wanting to hawk his prized medals. The exchange was featured in the first ever episode of Pawn Stars and was bittersweet, with Rick going on to tell ESPN that he felt bad for the Olympian, as it was all that Green had. Despite the two medals together being worth $30,000, the Harrisons promised to never sell them in case Green wanted to buy them back later, although some reports suggested they were listed on eBay in August 2009. A sad time for Jumpin' Joe Green, but a profitable one for the Harrisons nonetheless. Green wouldn't be the last athlete to trade in his highly praised trophy either, but more on that later.
Well, how much? Quit teasing me.
30 to 40 grand.
Number 5. Order of the White Eagle Medallion. Antique dealers will often tell you that the best place to go hunting is at a yard sale or a thrift store. There's no better place than to seek out your fortune than in these places, where stuff is often thrown out without being recognized for what it is. In this case, a regular yard sale visitor picked up this medal for just 75 cents while looking for little keepsakes to buy. Rick was instantly intrigued by the medal and snapped it up for $6,000. It was only later that he called the experts and then realized what he had. Craig Gottlieb told Rick that the medal dated way back to the Tsarist occupation of Poland and was worth much more than a few $1,000s that he paid for it. While the original buyer was happy with their sum, they would have been over the moon with Rick's profit. He sold the Order of the White Eagle Medallion for an astonishing $30,000. Next time you're clearing out your loft, make sure you know what you're throwing out. You could be missing out on thousands.
I would appraise this book actually at about $40,000.
Oh.
Number 4. The Book of Mormon. An item doesn't have to be made from precious materials to have an extremely high value. In fact, some of the most profitable items in the world aren't. Just last year, a Van Gogh painting sold at Christie's for an astronomical $479 million. When Adam brought his copy of the Book of Mormon into the store, he knew that he had an old copy that might be worth a few bucks, but he was blissfully unaware of how special it might be. Published in 1842, the leather-bound edition was the last one printed while the religion's founder Joseph Smith was alive. The Harrisons called in Rebecca Romney, an expert in the field, to give them an accurate valuation. Although everyone knew it was worth something, they were shocked to discover the small volume was worth $40,000. Both Adam and Rick managed to turn a substantial profit, with Rick doing a deal for $24,000. That's a heck of a markup for everyone involved. Even replicas of the item sell for a few $100s a piece, and that's not to be sniffed at. It might be time to take a second look at your bookshelf.
Up until 2001, this was the biggest Super Bowl ring made.
Number 3. 2001 Patriots Super Bowl ring. Anything Super Bowl related always goes down a storm with sports fans, and it created quite the buzz in the pawn shop too. Former Patriots defensive back Brock Williams also found himself facing hard times and reluctantly approached the Harrison family, hoping to hawk his 2001 Patriots Super Bowl ring. After a slew of injuries that forced him to retire, Williams had no other option but to sell his jewelry to Rick for $2,600. Initially, he was supposed to reclaim the ring by repaying the loan within 120 days, but the former athlete never came back for it. Unclaimed, it became the property of the Pawn Stars, but Rick values it so much he decided to keep a hold of it, despite similar rings selling for $30,000. He sets the price at $100,000. The only way it will leave his possession is if someone coughs up more than 3 times of what it's worth. And even the biggest sports fans wouldn't be that desperate for it. Number 2. The Infinity Gauntlet. Every now and then, something comes into the shop that Rick knows is going to make a big buck. We all know how popular superhero movies are now, so when a prop designer came by to try and hawk one of the original prototypes for the Infinity Gauntlet featured in Avengers Infinity War, it was a no-brainer for the team. But while Rick appreciated the novelty of the item and what it could be worth, he wasn't entirely sure. He enlisted the help of an expert who valued the Gauntlet at $30,000. A deal was made for $15,000, leaving Rick with a whole lot of profit and the seller with enough in his back pocket to expand his comic collection. If that's just what a prototype was worth, can you imagine what the real Gauntlet would go for? It almost doesn't bear thinking about.
Well, I bought it 12 years ago for way less than that. 111 sounds good to me.
All right, it's deal, 111.
Number 1. 200 pounds of silver. Sometimes people hold on to the strangest things for little to no reason. Imagine Rick and the old man's surprise when a customer strolled into the shop with suitcases to the brim of solid silver blocks. The gentleman had kept the precious metal tucked away in a storage unit for over a decade, not really knowing what to do with it. Take that to Storage Wars! Although the guys aren't usually used to dealing with such large quantities of silver at one time, they weighed it all out. It came in at a huge 3,300 ounces. Never ones to pass up on a deal that could make them some serious cash, the Harrisons made the purchase at $110,000. Hardly small change. Amazingly, they managed to create an even bigger profit. They custom minted silver coins featuring a portrait of the old man with the inscription, "In the old man we trust," selling them at $70 a pop. Not a bad day's work, right? We hope you enjoyed today's video. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and check out one of the other 2 videos on the screen now.